Thank you everybody for attending. This is the Boundary Review Committee for Telford and Wrekin Council. We are remote streaming and broadcasting live to the public. Please can you use your remote hands if you want to indicate. The first item that we need to deal with is the appointment of chair. So can I have nominations, please? Councillor Overton.
Can I nominate Councillor Cassar, please?
Is that seconded? Councillor McClements. Any further nominations?
Is it worth it?
All those in favour? That's carried. So Councillor Cassar is chair. Councillor Cassar, over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, everybody. It's good to see you all again. And I'm looking forward to working with you on the boundary review. A shame that we can't meet in person, but hopefully in due course over the course of this process, we'll get the chance again. So I'll take apologies for absence today, please, Joseph, if you don't
Yes, Chair, we've received no apologies for absence, but Councillor Karen Blundell has declined the invitation to this meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. And do any members have any declarations of interest that they would like to make us aware of at the moment? No, that's fine. So we will move to the minutes of the previous meeting, which was a very long time ago. So those of you who were there, if you can remember and believe it to be a true recording of the events, I'd appreciate if somebody could move that.
I'll move the minutes of the meeting.
Brilliant. Thank you, Richard. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Fabulous. Thank you, Angela. Great. So now we're going to move on to a word on the terms of reference. So if Anthea, if we can move that there, fine, that would be great. Any proposers, please?
I'll move the terms of reference. Chair.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Angela. Great. And moving on, then we are going to receive a presentation from the Associate Director of Policy and Governance in relation to the Local Boundary Review Commission for England's review of electoral arrangements, which will kindly be given to us by Anthea. So Anthea, welcome and thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just before I do move into the presentation, I do have some slides and they will be circulated with members after the meeting. But before I do, I just wanted to formally introduce Phil Griffiths, who is with us this evening. So Phil's been taken on to support the council in delivering the review. So we've employed Phil to provide some extra capacity, and he'll be managing the project moving forward. I think most members, if not all, are familiar with Phil because he was previously here over the last review, so he's very experienced and understands the process back to front, I think it's fair to say. So Phil will be more visible. You'll see a lot more of him moving forward now that he's on board. So I just wanted to formally introduce him, although I think, like I say, you all know him already. So, Chair, I'm just going to share some slides. Hopefully this will work. Oh, I don't think that's worked, has it?
Mm-hmm.
I think you've got something random.
Got your Asda shopping list.
Let me try again. Oh, it appears to have disappeared. Bear with me a second and I'll try again. Is that an improvement?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
brilliant. So, Chair, when I'm presenting, I'm not able to see hands. So if you're able to let me know if anybody has any questions, I'd be grateful. And there is an opportunity for questions at the end as well if members wanted to wait, but I'm happy to take questions throughout as well.
Thanks.
So just as an introduction, just as a recap really on where we are at the moment, in January 2020, as you'll have seen from the minutes, there was an agreement to write to the Local Government Boundary Commission for England to seek a review of the electoral arrangements for Telford and Wrekin Council. Due to COVID, that was delayed, but the Boundary Commission has recently agreed to undertake a review, and those members who were able to attend will recall that there was an all-member presentation from the Boundary Commission probably about 3 weeks ago now. So some of what I'm saying this evening will be familiar from that presentation, but it just helps to give members an opportunity to ask any questions as well. So the review is in 2 stages. The first stage is a review of numbers. So that looks at the numbers of members for the council and the projected electorate as at 2027. The review of the member numbers is based upon what's needed to reasonably transact the business of the council and also to undertake casework for residents of the borough. Once that stage is complete, it then moves on to the second stage, which is the review of the warding arrangements. So that is the numbers of wards, what those boundaries should look like for the wards, and the names of the wards as well. And the idea there is to first of all, secure as best as possible electoral equality between wards and members, and for the wards to match community identity, so that for each ward to try and have some sort of identity that communities can relate to. And then the third consideration is effective local government. So just again as a recap really on the reason why a review has been undertaken. The last review was undertaken between 2012 and 2014, and it was implemented in 2015. So it's 6 years since the last one was implemented. This current one will be implemented in 2023. So that will be 8 years since the last one took effect. Since the last one has been implemented, some areas of the borough have had some significant growth. There's a couple of examples there. For example, Lawley has had a 24.08% increase in the electorate between 2015 and 2019. Newport had a 10.4% increase in electorate between the same period. In addition, there's some further development planned in some areas over the next few years, which will simply increase the disparity between electorate to member ratios across the borough. And there are some significant variances already between the electors per member throughout the borough. So by way of an example, between Brookside and Horsey and Lightmoor, which are the 2 opposite ends of the scale, there's a 26% difference in the representation between those 2 wards. So in more detail, stage 1, like I've said, this is the current stage, and the idea is that this looks at 2 things. The first one being the optimum number of members, and the guidance from the Boundary Commission states that we look at, or it looks at, the number of cabinet members that the council has and will have moving forward, as best as possible that can be identified. The number of members needed for scrutiny purposes, the number of members needed for regulatory committees, so that's things like planning and licensing, and then the time needed to undertake ward work and casework. It's best practice to provide an evidence base to support any submission around numbers, well, in fact, all stages, but we should be able to provide an evidence base to support the submission that the council puts forward in relation to member numbers. So in more detail, there's a template from the Boundary Commission, and I've put a link there to it. I'm not intending to click through that now unless members really want me to. I can't see if anybody's not shaking their heads. So Chair, if you let me know if anybody is asking to see it, then I'm happy to click through. But it's there for members, and like I say, the slides will be circulated after the meeting. And I've also put the section of the website that you need to look at as well to find that. The Boundary Commission have made it clear that short is good enough, a short submission. So 15 to 20 pages is an ideal length. In that submission, we should be setting out the reason for the review, the profile of the local authorities, so what's our makeup, are we rural, are we urban, what the demographic is like, that sort of thing. The context for the proposals, so building on that local authority profile. It expects that we'll touch on how the strategic leadership of the council is delivered. We should be explaining what the scrutiny function looks like and the members that are involved in scrutiny, what we need to deliver the statutory functions, work with partnerships, work in terms of community leadership and then casework. And like I say, they ask for an evidence base to support that. The Boundary Commission has been very helpful, and they have provided some examples of what they consider good submissions on council numbers. And now again, I've provided the links for the 3 that they have particularly recommended as being good examples. As well as looking at the numbers of members, the Boundary Commission at stage 1 will also look at the projected electorate numbers. So this is a projection to 2027, but also a look ahead beyond that to about 10 years from now. Again, there's a very helpful guidance and a template available on the Boundary Commission's website. And again, I've shown the section that can be accessed at. The template from the Boundary Commission is based upon the increased electorate between 2010 and 2016 on the numbers that they have already through various methods. But then they expect the council to supplement that with information regarding proposed development, looking forward 10 years, general population statistics that we might have, and at the next meeting, we'll be looking at electorate numbers in more detail. In terms of timetable, for the first stage, the Boundary Commission is expecting the submission to be made by the 16th of April this year. The Commission will then consider those submissions, and a decision on council numbers is expected mid to end of May 2021. From then, the Boundary Commission will then undertake a consultation with stakeholders on warding arrangements, and that's expected to take place roughly between the end of May 2021 and early August 2021 for a 10-week period. I should stress that that is the consultation is the Boundary Commission's consultation. They do ask for the council to provide them with a list of key stakeholder groups, and again, we'll be bringing information to this committee on that list so that members can be assured that it's thorough and robust. As an indication, the Commission have said that they expect for a council of our size to have a stakeholder group list of between 300 and 500 different groups, and the smaller the better in some respects, because when it comes to community identity, those smaller groups who really understand their locality can often really provide a lot of rich evidence in terms of the community identity aspect that the Boundary Commission considers. Once stage 1 has concluded and the consultation has finished, then the Boundary Commission starts to consider warding arrangements, which is stage 2. And like I've said, that's the boundaries and the ward names. That last point isn't right. I'm sorry about that. So I have said the consultation will commence from around the end of May. That's in relation to the first stage, so I apologise, but there is further consultation by the Boundary Committee once they've considered the submissions in relation to warding arrangements, and that will involve all of the stakeholders. So they'll publish their draft submissions and will invite comment from the stakeholder groups and the council to comment on the warding arrangements. After that has taken place, they will consider all of those comments and then they'll publish their final proposals. And currently the timetable for that is that we're expecting those final proposals summer 2022. But that'll be firmed up as we move through the process. So in terms of the next meeting, officers will be bringing a draft submission in relation to council numbers, and information will be available to review in relation to the projected, the current electorate and projected electorate, and information relating to the proposed stakeholder groups, so that members can add to that or make comment on that as needed. Chair, I have also on the next slide provided links to useful resources. They're all on the Boundary Commission website, so I would hope that they're not too difficult to find in any event. But all of those links are hyperlinks, so if members clicked on those when they've got the slides, they would be able to hopefully access those sections directly. You'll see the final one is a link to the previous review, just in case members felt it was of interest. But what I would stress is that this is a new review and it should be taken as a new review rather than looking at what's taken place in the past, because things have obviously moved on since then. And that was all I was intending to say, Chair, unless there are any questions.
Thank you, Anthea. Really appreciate the hard work that you've put into putting that presentation together and presenting it to us. Do members have any questions? Yes, Angela.
Thank you, Chair. Just for clarification, really, on the projected numbers, is it correct then that they will be looking at the 10 years ahead? Because if I think about the last sort of review that we had, they didn't take on board the numbers in sort of what we were telling them, what was going on in Lawley, that wasn't taken into consideration. Has there been a change? I suppose that's what I'm saying, by the Boundary Commission, because it, just getting those numbers right for 10 years ahead, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's a subtle change, Councillor McClements. So in terms of the projected numbers for the arrangements, it is to 2027. But what they will do is if the submission that the two submissions that we put forward leads to a variance, a significant variance in one or two wards of 10% or slightly more, then if we can explain that that's because within the next few years after 2027 there's expected to be a large development, then that will be taken into account, because what they don't want to see is the implementation of some arrangements, which I think is probably what's happened last time. The implementation of some arrangements, which then once the development's delivered, immediately bring about large variances again. So I think they take it into account so that we can try and plan and have a negative variance in those areas where we're expecting some significant development to take place, so that we don't immediately go into the plus variance quite quickly afterwards.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
And Councillor Dugmore, if you'd like to ask your question.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Sorry. Yeah, well, Anthony probably knows what I'm going to ask. Can we have a map of the existing warding arrangements and also the historic figures of the electorate, so that gives us a starting point from which to work on?
Councillor Dugmore, you probably haven't had time to see it because I know you've been working, but I sent something at about 5:30 this afternoon.
Oh, right, okay.
So there's maps of the borough to ward level with polling districts identified, and then maps to parish level with polling districts identified, and then electorate information 2018, 19 and 20. I've circulated it to group leaders and said that they're more than welcome to share that with groups. I haven't yet circulated to this committee because I want the group leaders to have it first, but I'll do that after this meeting.
Yeah, okay then, great. Thanks very much.
Councillor Greenaway, if you'd like to ask your question.
Oh, yes. I just wanted to pick up on something you said, Anthony, about two proposals. Is sort of my first question, or I've just misheard you. So when you spoke last before, in response to Angela, about proposals that the council would put forward, you said something about two proposals. So I just wanted some clarity about that. or whether that was just a slip of the tongue and it just meant one proposal. I don't know. And the other thing is that when you look, I'm remembering back, although I wasn't on the boundary committee then at the time, but I do remember some of the members were, and I actually was invited to the boundary committee as a member for one of the areas that were increasing, but of course at that stage the building hadn't taken place, so that's moved on some. But I think of a couple of areas, well, one in particular, where the numbers are quite high now, but looking at the current developments that are coming forward, they're going to be in a similar situation to what Lawley was sort of 6 years ago. So, you know, how does that build in? I mean, I know that we're supposed to take into account and the planning numbers come into account, but there's going to be some pinch points. Couldn't we be in the same position before the 10-year period again if we're not careful? It's just, I just wanted to make that sort of, and how does the council balance that, I suppose?
Okay. Just on your first point, I don't recall mentioning two submissions.
Right.
I think maybe what I said was that when we're making the submission to the commission, they will, although they're required to look at the numbers to 2027, they will take into account any evidence that we have of development 10 years, so that we can explain variances that otherwise wouldn't be acceptable to the commission. Unless somebody tells me otherwise, I don't recall making reference to two submissions. So I'm sorry if I have said something that's misled.
Sorry, perhaps I'm hearing things. I mean, all I don't want to see is, and I know what happened with Lawley, and you know, I would welcome this, certainly this review, because of the situation that, you know, the identity, the loss of identity happens in a large development area. And Priorslee obviously is going to be pushed, Newport certainly. So that's sort of very welcome, but I think we do need to bear that in mind, particularly about the identity of the larger developed areas. So for me, that plays a big part in it, really. Thanks for that.
I think I might have made reference to submissions plural on the basis that consultees can make submissions as well. So maybe that's where you've picked that up. In terms of the second question about being in a position where we'll have inequality pretty much straight away, that's the reason why the council submission needs to deal with where we're expecting those pockets of development. And in an ideal world, the proposals that we put forward will mean that currently there might be a lower resident to member ratio, knowing that moving forward the number of residents is going to increase to then even it out across the borough. The only thing the Boundary Commission have said to me more than once, that the only thing that's guaranteed about a review of the electoral arrangements is that it won't be right, because it is very much a projection, it's based on estimates, and with the best will in the world you can't guarantee those, but the role of officers is to make sure the right information is available to make it as accurate as possible, and we're fortunate in this council, we've got a lot of good officers who are good at data analysis and providing the information that we need, and part of that will be looking at the local plan and where those areas of development are expected to be taking place.
Thank you. Thanks, Anthony.
Councillor McClements.
Thank you, Chair. Just a query on the stakeholder groups. I know you mentioned, I think, sort of about 300 to 500 was the sort of average. What numbers would that be in Telford and Wrekin? Because we're really good at sort of, you know, with our stakeholder groups, and it's quite significant, the number of groups that we do have, you know, would that be increased?
So the Boundary Commission's expectation for authority of our size is between 300 and 500, but early conversations with the community engagement team, they're confident that they'll be able to provide a list of around 1,000 community groups and stakeholders, possibly more, but they would just they've gone away to rationalise a list and see if they are relevant, I guess, to the purpose of the commission. But certainly I'm confident that we'll be able to exceed the usual numbers that the Boundary Commission expects from an authority of our size. And the Boundary Commission's made it very clear the more stakeholders, the better they feel.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Is that all questions from members then? Brilliant. Thank you, everybody. Then I think I can just say thank you to our officers for all the hard work that they've put in to get this meeting together as it has. And I'd like to remind members and any members of the public currently watching that our next meeting will take place on the 18th of March. So make sure that should be in your diaries because Joseph's kindly forwarded invitations. Other than that, thank you to members for bringing the dignity with which you represent your communities to this meeting tonight. And I look forward to working with you in the next steps. And we shall see you next time. Is there anything else from people before we go?
No, thank you.
No? Brilliant. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Chair.